My child, listen carefully, because what I am about to reveal is not light, it is not simple, and it is not something your heart will understand all at once. There is something your son desires right now with an intensity that scares even the angels who watch over him. It is not success. It is not attention. It is not power. It is not money. No, what he is carrying inside him is far heavier, far darker, and far more personal than anything you imagined. And the reason your spirit has felt restless lately is because this truth has been pressing against the walls of heaven, demanding to be exposed. Right now, at this very moment, your son is fighting a war inside his own chest. On the outside, he appears normal. To the world, he still walks, still speaks, still exists the same way he always did. But inside, something is burning. Something is twisting. Something is breaking apart. He feels betrayed in a way that cut deeper than he was prepared for. And when betrayal goes that deep, it no longer stays emotional, it begins to shape thoughts. This is the part that shakes you, my child. Your son has been whispering desires in the dark that he is too afraid to say out loud. Desires he does not fully understand. Desires that were born from pain, not from evil. From heartbreak, not from hate. But the danger of pain is that if it is not healed, it begins to speak in destructive language. And yes, my child, there is a woman connected to this storm in his heart. A woman whose presence has entangled itself into his pain, his confusion, his anger, and his silence. And what makes this even heavier is this detail you were not prepared for: her name begins with the same letter as yours. That is why your chest tightened when you heard that. That is why fear tried to rise in you without permission. That is why your breath felt shorter for a moment. Because similarity creates proximity. And proximity creates fear. So now the mind begins to race. Is it coincidence? Is it symbolic? Is it personal? Is it random? Or is it something closer than you want it to be? I need you to breathe slowly now. Because not every storm comes to destroy. Some storms come to reveal what was hidden, what was buried, what was never addressed, and what was silently poisoning the roots long before the leaves showed damage. A few nights ago, while the world was sleeping, your son sat alone in a room so quiet that even his thoughts sounded loud. The lights were off. The phone was face down. And his hands would not stop shaking, not from fear, but from emotional overload. He wasn't crying. He wasn't yelling. He was locked in that dangerous place where emotions don't escape, they ferment. He kept replaying memories he never wanted to replay. Words spoken. Promises broken. Truths uncovered too late. And the heavier it became, the more his breathing changed. Not fast. Not slow. Uneven. Like someone trying to outrun something inside their own chest. He reached for something to distract himself. Anything. A notebook. A pen. A scratch of motion just to feel control again. And without fully realizing it, he began to write. Not a message. Not a plan. Just a name. One name. Slowly. Carefully. Almost trembling as each letter appeared. As the first letter formed, the atmosphere shifted. As the second letter appeared, silence thickened. By the time the third letter touched the page, heaven had already turned its attention toward that room. Because the name forming on that paper mirrored something familiar. Something connected. Something close to your life. Something that shared a linguistic echo with your own identity. Not every resemblance is a threat, my child. But every resemblance is a signal. Before the name was completed, his emotions surged. Not into action, but into collapse. His hands tightened. His breathing stuttered. And he froze, staring at what he had almost fully written, as if he himself did not recognize what his pain was trying to express. In one sudden motion, he crossed the name out. Hard. Violent on the page but desperate in the soul. Ink tore through paper. Lines overlapped. The letters disappeared beneath layers of black. Not because he finished with the thought, but because he was terrified of what the thought meant. This, my child, is what you must understand. Your son is not craving destruction of a person. He is craving destruction of pain. But unhealed pain does not know the difference. It confuses relief with removal. It confuses healing with erasing. It confuses peace with disappearance. And that is why heaven moved instantly. Not to punish him. Not to accuse him. Not to expose him to the world. But to guard him from becoming what he is not. The truth hidden beneath this storm is this: the woman connected to his anguish is someone who shared emotional space with him, trust with him, history with him. And a truth recently surfaced that shattered the picture he had built in his mind. A truth that made him question his worth. A truth that made him feel used. A truth that made him feel emotionally robbed. And when someone feels robbed in the emotional realm, they often begin to fantasize about emotional erasure. Not death. Not harm. But absence. Vanishing. Silence. Removal of the reminder. Removal of the trigger. Removal of the wound. But listen carefully now, my child, fantasies born from pain are not prophecies. Dark thoughts are not destiny. Emotional breakdown is not moral failure. And suffering does not make someone evil. It makes them human in desperate need of healing. Your son does not want to be cruel. He wants to stop hurting. He does not want revenge. He wants relief. He does not want destruction. He wants the ache to end. But because he does not yet have language for healing, his thoughts translated the emotion into something frightening. And that is why I intervened. Quietly. Firmly. Without drama. Without taking him out of the world. Without exposing his internal war to public shame. I placed a restraint over his impulses. I slowed the spiral. I interrupted the mental loops. I planted interruption inside obsession. And little by little, the intensity is already weakening, even if you cannot see it yet. Meanwhile, my child, your spirit has been heavy for reasons you could not fully explain. You assumed it was stress. Fatigue. Responsibility. But a portion of that weight did not originate in your own struggles. A portion of it traveled to you through emotional connection. Through parental bond. Through unseen spiritual threads. You felt unrest because his heart was restless. Parents feel what children don't say. And now I speak to you not to create fear, but to restore alignment. Because your role in this season is not combat. It is anchoring. Your calm stabilizes him. Your presence grounds him. And though you do not yet know all that he is fighting inside himself, your consistency is already preventing him from drifting into emotional rashness. Now listen closely to this part, because it will lift the heaviest fear from your chest. No blood will be shed in this story. No irreversible action will define him. What will define him is what comes next. Healing does not arrive as light at first. It arrives as exhaustion from darkness. It arrives as disinterest in rage. It arrives as quiet detachment from the wound. And that process has already begun. Now I turn my voice to you, my beloved child. I know you are tired. You wake up already exhausted. You replay conversations with quiet worry. And some days you feel as if you are holding everything together with invisible thread that could snap at any moment. But hear this truth, you are not weak. You are carrying weight that would have already crushed others. Your strength has not been loud. It has been patient. And yet, here you are, still standing. You have sacrificed without applause. And heaven has recorded every unseen effort. Every delayed dream. Every quiet tear. None of it was ignored. A shift is building that you cannot yet touch, but it is close enough to create pressure in the unseen. Your restoration will not arrive as noise. It will arrive as stability. Your breakthrough will not arrive as chaos. It will arrive as peace. Your recovery will not arrive as hype. It will arrive as breath returning to your chest. And when it comes, you will not need to convince yourself it is real. Your nervous system will know. Your sun will stabilize. Your household will settle. Your finances will reorganize. Your hope will rebuild without forcing itself. And what was once frightening will become testimony, not of destruction, but of rescue. Hold steady. I am not finished. My child, there are moments in life when nothing explodes on the outside, yet everything collapses within. That is the season your son has been passing through. Not with loud mistakes. Not with public chaos. But with quiet inner wars that leave a person exhausted without ever lifting a finger. And the most dangerous battles are not the ones fought with fists, they are the ones fought in the mind when no one else is watching. After the night he crossed that name out, after the surge of emotion passed through his body like an electric shock, he sat frozen in the silence. Not relieved. Not satisfied. Not calm. Just empty. That kind of emptiness that makes time feel strange. Minutes stretch. Breath feels distant. Reality feels slightly detached from the body. He stared at the wall, but he wasn't seeing the wall. He was seeing memories layered over one another, overlapping until he could no longer tell which version of the past was real and which version his pain had rewritten. That is the thing betrayal does, my child. It does not only break trust with another person. It breaks trust with one's own judgment. It makes a person question their discernment, their instincts, their entire emotional compass. And when someone loses trust in themselves, they begin to spiral inward. He kept asking questions that had no immediate answers. Was it all a lie? Were the promises ever real? Was the affection genuine or calculated? Was the connection built on truth or convenience? Every unanswered question added weight to his chest. And that weight began to press down on his identity. When identity feels threatened, the soul panics. Not outwardly. Inwardly. And that panic, when it stays trapped inside, begins to look like darkness. But listen closely now, my child. Darkness is not always evil. Sometimes it is unresolved grief wearing armor. Your son felt humiliated without being publicly shamed. He felt abandoned without being physically alone. He felt foolish without anyone laughing at him. These are the quietest wounds, yet the deepest ones. And because no one could see the bleeding, he himself stopped acknowledging it as injury. He started calling it anger instead. But it was never anger. It was loss. Loss of expectation. Loss of dignity. Loss of the version of himself he was when he trusted freely. That loss bruised him in places he did not have language for. So yes, his thoughts became heavy. Yes, his emotions became intense. But no, his core did not become dark. It became overwhelmed. For the first few days after the truth surfaced, he isolated himself. Not dramatically. Not obviously. Just subtly enough that no one challenged it. Replies got shorter. Smiles faded quicker. Patience thinned. He stopped engaging in conversations he once enjoyed. Even music began to sound distant to him. When music loses its power, the heart is carrying too much weight. And this is where many people stumble without ever realizing it, my child. When the heart is overloaded, the mind begins looking for someone to blame who can carry the weight instead. Pain always wants a target. And when pain doesn't find a healthy outlet, it creates an unhealthy one. Now hear this clearly. Wanting pain to stop is not the same as wanting someone else to suffer. But in the fog of emotional shock, the distinction can blur. Your son's spirit did not crave destruction. It craved relief so intense that his mind briefly misinterpreted what relief looked like. And that misinterpretation scared him more than the pain itself. That is why he struck that name out with such force. Not because he wanted to commit to the thought, but because he wanted to run from it. People think tearing up a page erases a thought. It doesn't. It just forces it deeper. And yet, even in that depth, I was present. I watched the moment his hands stopped shaking. I listened to the moment his breathing slowed. I marked the second when his eyes shifted from rage to confusion. That confusion was the doorway back to himself. Confusion means the soul has not fully hardened. It means the heart is still wrestling with conscience. It means compassion has not been replaced by bitterness. It means light has not been extinguished, only dimmed by smoke. My child, let me say something that may free you from unconscious guilt you have been carrying without realizing it. This did not happen because you failed as a parent. This did not happen because you missed something obvious. Pain does not discriminate based on upbringing. It visits the strong and the soft alike. The difference is not whether pain arrives. The difference is how quickly healing is invited in. And healing has already entered this story quietly. After days of carrying that internal tension, your son reached a point where emotional exhaustion overtook emotional agitation. That is often the turning point. Rage burns hot. But it burns fast. Sadness burns slower. And exhaustion is what arrives after both. One night, when sleep refused to come again, he sat up not with shaking hands this time, but with heaviness behind the eyes. And he whispered words he did not plan to say. They were not dramatic. They were not loud. They were not eloquent. They were raw. I'm tired of feeling this way. That single sentence cracked the door for restoration. Because the moment someone admits they are tired of pain, they stop feeding the fire. They begin starving it. From that night onward, his thoughts began subtly shifting. The images lost their intensity. The emotional spikes softened. The urge to fix the past through imagined erasure weakened. He stopped replaying the betrayal as frequently. Not because he forgave yet, but because fatigue overtook fury. Fatigue is often the first stage of healing. And while this was unfolding within him, you were feeling unfamiliar heaviness without understanding why. You felt protective without having new information. You felt tension when things appeared calm. That is the invisible thread between parent and child that never truly disconnects. Even when words stop flowing, the soul still signals. Let me speak into your fear now. Your son is not becoming something unrecognizable. He is passing through something uncomfortable. And passing through is not the same as being overtaken. Storms travel. They do not settle permanently unless the environment invites them to stay. And his environment is already shifting. The woman connected to this wound will not have lifelong power over his emotional story. Her chapter will close. Not through confrontation. Not through revenge. Not through chaos. But through distance, clarity, and internal separation. The most powerful form of justice is not retaliation. It is detachment. And detachment is forming quietly. Now, my child, there is something else you need to understand about yourself in this season. You have been strong for so long that you have forgotten what it feels like not to brace yourself for impact. Your nervous system has been living in alert mode. You anticipate problems before they arrive. You prepare for disappointment even in moments of peace. This constant readiness is why you feel drained even on good days. You are not tired because life is unbearable. You are tired because you have been carrying responsibility without rest. You are tired because you have been emotionally alert for too long. You are tired because you keep being the one who holds things together when others fall apart. And you rarely ask who is holding you. But I am. Not in words only. In timing. In restraint. In redirection. In things not turning out worse when they easily could have. In moments when disaster almost happened but didn't. In nights that should have ended in breakdown but quietly passed instead. In thoughts that crossed dangerous territories but turned back at the edge. These are not accidents. These are interventions you did not see. And now I speak this not to alarm you, but to stabilize you. Nothing is spiraling out of control. What feels tense is actually reorienting. What feels delayed is actually being protected from premature manifestation. Your family line is not collapsing. It is shifting. Your son is not descending. He is decompressing. And you are not failing. You are enduring. A softer season is approaching, but softness only arrives after the storm finishes rearranging what was rigid. You will notice changes not as miracles at first, but as emotional quiet. Laughter returning in small doses. Conversation becoming easier. Sleep growing deeper. Reactivity lowering. Restlessness reducing. These will be the early signs. And when you see them, do not interrogate them. Do not fear them. Do not overanalyze them. Just let them settle. Because peace does not need justification. It only needs space. And now, my beloved child, there is one more layer that must be revealed, and this is the layer that will lift the last remaining weight from your fear. The truth about that shared letter in the name, the reason your heart reacted so strongly to it, and why that detail surfaced at all, is not because danger was meant to reach you. It surfaced because resemblance creates reflection, and reflection exposes emotions you were suppressing on your own journey as well. But that is the revelation that unfolds next. And it changes everything. My child, the reason that single letter shook your spirit is not because danger was reaching for you, but because that letter touched a mirror inside your own heart that you have not looked into for a long time. The shared beginning was never about threat. It was about recognition. Reflection. Alignment. It surfaced because heaven wanted your attention in a deeper way than comfort ever could. That letter represents lineage. It represents origin. It represents connection. It represents the invisible thread between parent and child that carries not only love, but emotional patterns, endurance, fear, sacrifice, silence, and strength passed from one generation to the next. What frightened you was not the possibility of harm, it was the possibility that your son's pain resembled pain you once carried quietly yourself. And that is why it hit so close to your chest. Because you are not only watching your child struggle. You are seeing your own past reflected in unfamiliar form. There was a season in your life too, my child, when disappointment did not come with noise. When betrayal did not come with witnesses. When you learned to be strong not because you wanted to be, but because no one else stepped in to carry you. You learned to swallow pain with dignity. You learned to keep moving even when your heart felt cracked. You learned to survive quietly. And now, watching your son move through emotional imbalance awakens those old instincts inside you, the instinct to fix, to protect, to absorb, to carry the weight for him just as you carried so much for others. But listen carefully now. This season is not asking you to carry his pain. It is asking you to trust the process of his healing. Because if you carry what he must process, you interrupt his growth. If you absorb his storm, you delay his strength. If you rescue him emotionally from every discomfort, you halt the development of his resilience. This is the delicate balance of parenthood in painful seasons, knowing when to shield, and knowing when to let the inner work unfold without interference. Your steadiness is powerful. Your overanalysis weakens both of you. And now, my child, listen to the quiet truth that will bring rest to your spirit. Your son reached another internal threshold 2 nights after the exhaustion set in. Not through conversation. Not through dramatic breakthrough. But through disappointment with his own emotional state. He caught himself replaying the same images again. He caught himself breathing heavy without cause. He caught himself isolating again from people who had nothing to do with the wound. And for the first time since the shock, he felt frustrated not with what happened, but with what he was becoming in response to it. That frustration was holy. Because disappointment with one's own emotional captivity is the doorway to liberation. He did not announce this shift. He did not declare it. He barely understood it. But something inside him whispered, "I don't want to live like this." That whisper was not loud. It did not overpower the pain instantly. But it planted opposition inside the cycle. And wherever opposition grows, dominance weakens. From that moment forward, the emotional landscape began slowly changing. Still heavy. Still tender. Still sensitive. But no longer spiraling in the same direction. His thoughts became less graphic. His reactions less impulsive. His silence less hostile. His presence less volatile. Healing does not arrive as fireworks. It arrives as slight reductions in intensity. And those slight reductions compound over time. Now understand this clearly, my beloved child, darkness does not leave suddenly when it loses control. It leaves gradually when it stops being fed. And that is what is happening now. The fire is not being fueled the same way. It is shrinking, even if embers still glow. You will begin to notice small behavioral shifts. A random question from him that feels lighter than usual. Do not interrogate these moments. Do not extract meaning from them. Let peace re-enter without being questioned. Now, allow me to speak directly to your fear about safety. Nothing tragic is being prepared. Nothing irreversible is approaching. No irreversible act has been authorized in the unseen. When thoughts crossed dangerous emotional territory, they were restrained. When intensity pushed toward unhealthy fantasy, it was interrupted. When mental images tried to escalate, clarity broke in. This was not by his strength alone. This was guarded. Shielded. Redirected. The reason you are hearing this message is not because something terrible is coming. It is because something terrible was prevented. And now we arrive at the deeper truth beneath it all. Your son did not lose only trust in another person. He lost a future he imagined. He lost an identity he temporarily built around that connection. He lost confidence in his judgment. And when those three collapse simultaneously, the soul trembles. But the most dangerous loss is not relationship. It is self-respect. And that is what is being rebuilt now. Rebuilding self-respect is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not brag. It reappears as boundaries. Your son will not emerge reckless from this. He will emerge cautious. And caution is not weakness. It is wisdom under construction. Now I turn my voice fully toward you again. You have been holding your breath emotionally without realizing it. Waiting for calm. Waiting for a sign that things are stabilizing. Waiting for proof that your family is not on the edge of something dangerous. Here is your proof. You are not on the edge of destruction. You are on the threshold of recalibration. And recalibration always feels uncomfortable before it feels better. You are not losing your son. Your finances will not remain in tension forever. What feels prolonged is actually compressing in the unseen. Time is folding in your favor quietly. What you lost in peace will be restored in stability. What you lost in comfort will be returned in confidence. What you lost in trust will be returned in discernment. Now hear me clearly as I speak this final truth of this section into you. You are not responsible for every outcome. You are responsible for your posture. And your posture right now is what has kept the door open for restoration. You did not panic destructively. And silent faith moves faster than loud fear. What is coming next will not arrive as shock. It will arrive as relief. A slow exhale. A loosening of the knot in your chest. A return of emotional safety to your home. And when it arrives, you will realize the storm passed closer than you ever knew, yet never touched you the way it wanted to. Because protection stood in the way. My beloved child, the moment you have been unknowingly waiting for is not loud, it is not dramatic, and it is not announced with thunder. It arrives quietly, like dawn slipping into a night that has been stretched too long. The shift does not shake walls. It settles hearts. And that is exactly how restoration always enters when destruction has been denied access. Your son will not wake up one morning suddenly fixed. He will wake up calmer. Less tense. Less reactive. Less haunted by the same repeating thoughts. And that quiet is the signal that the war inside him has ended, even if the scars still need time to fade. He will stop rehearsing what hurt him and slowly begin imagining what could heal him. His future will return to his vision not as fantasy, but as possibility. And possibility is stronger than pain. You will notice his shoulders are not always drawn upward anymore. You will notice the edge in his voice soften. You will notice that silence will no longer feel hostile but neutral, peaceful even. You will notice him return to small routines he dropped without explanation. These are not coincidences. These are confirmations. What almost consumed him did not win. Because the truth is this, my child, pain tried to define him, but purpose interrupted the process. Now I speak to you directly, at the deepest place in your spirit. You have been functioning on survival-level strength for a long time. You adapted so well to pressure that you forgot what it feels like to live without constantly bracing for impact. Your nervous system learned to stay alert. Your heart learned to expect disappointment before hope. Your thoughts learned to prepare for collapse even in moments of peace. But that survival posture is being gently dismantled now. You will not need to stay hypervigilant forever. You have earned rest that is not fragile. Your home will feel lighter. Your mind will feel slower. And when that happens, do not resist it. Do not question whether you deserve it. Do not fear that it will disappear. Receive it. Let it remain. Let the nervous system relearn safety. Now hear this promise clearly. The emotional storm that tried to move through your family will not be the story people remember. What will be remembered is the stability that followed. The wisdom that formed. The discernment that sharpened. The strength that matured. The calm that returned stronger than before. Your son will not be marked by what almost happened. He will be marked by what he survived without becoming. And now I turn to the area that has been draining your courage the most, your finances. Every calculation you did that didn't work. Every bill that arrived early. None of it was invisible. None of it was ignored. Provision does not always arrive before pressure. Sometimes it arrives because of pressure. A door will open that you could not force open. An opportunity will appear that you did not chase. A solution will come that you did not design. Relief will arrive from a direction you did not track. And when it does, you will understand why the delay was protection. Why the struggle was shaping alignment. You were being stabilized for sustainability, not rescued for temporary relief. What is coming will last longer than what you begged for earlier. Now, my faithful child, there is something else you must release. The guilt you carry for not being able to control every outcome. The unspoken burden of thinking you must always be the strong one. You are allowed to rest. Strength was never meant to become your prison. It was meant to be your season, not your sentence. Everything that worried you did not end you. You are still standing. Still believing behind the fatigue. And now the chapter is changing. Silently. Gently. Powerfully. Now listen to this final truth and let it settle deep inside you. Nothing that tried to rise against your household will have the final word. No emotional storm. No financial pressure. No relational tension. The final word will be restoration. The final word will be stability. Now, my beloved child, you did not encounter this message by accident. You were led here because your spirit needed confirmation that what you felt could not fully interpret. And now that you've heard it, I want you to do something simple but powerful. If this message reached into you in any way, don't just listen in silence. Let your faith move. Let your agreement speak. Let your expectation activate. Like the video as a signal that you receive peace. Share it with someone who is silently carrying weight. Comment a simple, "I receive rest," in faith. And if your heart feels led to support this channel, your super thanks becomes a seed of blessing, not for me, but as an act of faith tied to your own restoration. Your generosity will not return empty. Your faith will not return delayed. Your endurance will not return unrewarded. Your season of exhale is beginning. Your season of emotional safety is returning. Your season of quiet victory is unfolding. Hold on just a little longer. Everything is aligning now. And I am with you through every step of it.